Hello, and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. I am your host, Kai Marie, and welcome for another episode. If this is your first time joining the podcast, welcome. You can find new episodes every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have a very special guest today. We go way back. I have author Kimani Lauren here, and we have I can already tell this is going to be a very lively conversation tonight. So anyone who is joining, buckle your seatbelts because it's about to get real on the Healing Element Podcast. And also, again, especially if you're new joining, if you have any questions or comments, please drop them in the comment box so that way we can address anything that you would like us to kind of bring up in our conversation tonight. So our topic tonight, a powerful message of activism, the role of literary fiction in the fight for social justice. I told y'all it's going to be crazy. Author Kimani Lauren will share with us how writing fiction books can be a form of social activism. With that being said, Kimani, welcome to the platform. It's such an honor to have you.
It's such an honor to be here. Casa, we go way back. Y'all and 80 what? 84, 85, 86?
Right?
We go way back.
Way back. So that's why it's such a treat to have you here. And also just to see now that you're off. And I remember years ago you talking about writing your book and actually not even talking about it, working on it. So to see now everything coming together for you, with being a published author and helping other authors with their work, I think that's just a testament to your dedication and hard work and everything that you've poured into making your dream a reality. So kudos to you for doing all of that. So please share with us, kind of introduce yourself to the Healing Podcast family so folks can get to know a little bit more about the author, Kimani Lauren.
Oh, I love the way that you keep rubbing that in.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kimani Lauren. I am an author and editor, and I own a publishing imprint called Perfectly Polished Words. I write books about women who need to prioritize their joy. I write books about classism, interracial classism. That means in the Black community. I write books about children who need to be heard. And I write books about police brutality. And sometimes I write some fun stuff too.
Very heavy topics that you do bring up. And I know that we're going to dive more into that.
Yeah, definitely. I write as a form of therapy, as Kai said. So everything that you see in my books is a reflection of something that hurt me, and I needed to turn it around so that it could no longer destroy me.
Wow, powerful. And I want to say, so many times we hear people like in the music industry saying how they use songwriting as their form of therapy to release. And that's what you do through your books, through storytelling.
Definitely. That's definitely what I do.
Wonderful. So you already know these books are going to be amazing because you're bringing in your personal experience plus what's going on in the world around us. So Kimani, when did you know that you wanted to be an author?
When I was 9 years old. I knew that I wanted to be an author. I started writing poetry when I was 9. Mm-hmm. And it was because I heard a classmate recite Ain't I a Woman by Sojourner Truth. Mm-hmm. And I said, wait a minute. That's something, I got something in me too. So let me write this. But writing books didn't come until a couple years later when I was at my grandmother's house. When we were growing up at my grandmother's house, we weren't allowed to do anything. Mm-hmm. Like we couldn't even sit on the porch because she said that a car was going to come up on the porch and hit us. So we had
that overprotective grandma, right? It's like nobody's gonna hurt my babies.
Yeah, it got a little bit dramatic over there. So there was this rare day when she let us go to the park. I don't know, we were getting on her last nerve or what, but she let us go to the park. And I remember walking by the basketball court and seeing this girl. And she was absolutely gorgeous. And she was so pretty that every boy at the basketball court stopped playing their game to call out to her, trying to get her attention.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went back to my grandmother's house, I couldn't get this girl off my mind. And I was like, okay, why am I thinking about this girl? I sat down with one of my me composition, the marble notebooks.
Oh, I remember those.
I sat down with that and I started writing a story about what happened with that girl at the basketball court. And it was like nothing happened. They just called out to her like, hey, we want to be your boyfriend. And she's like, no, I gotta go home. I wanna not be tied down to you guys because you guys are playing basketball. And I made a whole story out of that, and that was when I knew that I wanted to do that. That was the most therapeutic time. It cured me of all my boredom. I was transformed to another place. And that's when I knew I wanted to be an author. A couple months later, my uncle looked at the notebook and he typed it up on the computer and made it into a book for me. And that's when I knew.
Oh my gosh. And so you've always been where something would kind of capture your attention, whether it's something directly impacting you or not, but then saying, I want to kind of write how this may play out.
Right. Exactly.
Awesome. So what was, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't catch what you said. I'm sorry.
I said, and the whole story will be born just from that.
But that's so awesome. And so so after writing for years, how did you feel when you published your first book? What was that experience like?
Well, when I published my first book, somebody did it for me. I was supposed to be in an anthology with a bunch of bigger name authors, and it fell through, and I was really disappointed. So one of the authors said, I'm going to publish this book for you. I'm going to edit it and get it on Kindle for you. And it was just like confirmation that I could do it. You know, I'm constantly seeking affirmations, but not so much verbal ones as just the world saying, yes, this is what you need to be doing. So that feeling was really great. It only took a couple months for that one to happen, but I had been writing the book that I was just talking about. I've been writing that book since that day, since I was 11 years old, and it's finally gonna come out next month. But I have been writing another book, the first full-length novel that I published, since about 5 years before that. So it was just like, okay, I'm not done with this one yet, but I can do other things. I can get active in the publishing world. And that was a great feeling because it was just like one of the steps on the road to a whole bunch of other steps getting accomplished.
Wow. And so your stories then kind of grow with you because that writing them over several years, do you see that has an impact on then how maybe the book finally comes to an end because of what may be going on in society or what might be going on in your personal life, how that may impact a book that maybe takes a few years to write?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Because the first draft, okay, I was 11 when I wrote it, so that one was a hot mess. But my first book that I published, the first full-length novel that I published, it did grow. And to look at that first rough draft that was, why would anybody write this, to what it grew into is just like, it's so fulfilling because it shows how I've grown as a person. At first it was just, this is just a little book about something that happened and it's what it is and you should never show anybody this in life. But then it grew with my beliefs. It grew into something that can serve my community. So Yeah.
Awesome. So that's actually a perfect segue into our next topic that we're going to dive into is just how authors can write about what's going on in the world around us and do that through literary fiction. So tell us more about writers who decide to write on social justice issues. And again, this is just generally speaking. So from what you've read and your experience with working with other authors, do you think that it's a mixture of them wanting to bring attention to different social justice issues, or wanting to help bring a resolution?
Okay, so you asked two very different questions there. Authors that I've read, social justice
Mm-hmm.
is hot right now.
Okay.
It's a moneymaker. It's a trend, a trope. So there are the authors who are going to write that because they know that there's a check attached to it.
Okay.
And I'm not downplaying anybody. I'm just saying that I don't like the term social justice. I think you and I had a conversation about this recently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. I don't like the term social justice
Mm-hmm.
because it is cliche right now.
Mm.
There's me as people shouldn't have to fight for justice. It just should be.
Mm-hmm.
We should not be making money off of movies talking about justice, because we shouldn't be making movies about people being killed by the police, but here we are.
Mm-hmm.
So they're good for what they are. They raise awareness and they make the people who made them, feel good. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't begrudge them or whatever. But the authors that I choose to work
Mm-hmm.
with,
Mm-hmm.
I vet them very carefully, and I normally only work with people who can teach me something.
Okay.
So we have the Liberation Through Reading program that was birthed by a very good author friend of mine named Erica Keynes. And she does work in her community. I work with people who are actually working outside of the book realm,
Mm-hmm.
not just writing it down, but actually doing physical things. So they go hand in hand. And I was saying for a long time, I'm just a writer, so I don't know what my role is in activism. And she was
Mm-hmm.
like, "What do you mean you're just a writer? Was Langston Hughes just a writer? Was Paul Laurence Dunbar just a writer?" Don't put the word "just" in there. Just make sure that you are doing along with your writing.
Mm.
And so
Powerful.
that's that.
Powerful. Because then that brings that whole authenticity of what you're writing about and the stories that you're telling, because you're actually doing the work as well. It's just not, oh, this is hot, right? This is a hot trend right now, so let me hop on it and kind of ride the wave. It's like, no, I actually want to see results in my community. So I may write a story, but the story is attached to my activism.
Yes.
Awesome. So now, I guess when telling that story about how you started writing, there was always the element of what was going on around you that was incorporated into the stories that you would tell. So, did you always know that you would kind of write about what was going on, like different societal topics such as racism and classism? Or did it kind of like fall, like did a story capture your attention? You were like, I got to write about it. Kind of, how did that evolve?
It started off as me writing what I wanted to see. So going back to my grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
very bored.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted, I wanted a little bit of excitement in my life. So it started off with little, tidbits of action. But then even at the surface of that, there was the element of colorism.
Mm-hmm.
The girl that I said that I saw that day was very dark skinned like myself, and she was very pretty. This was at a time where dark-skinned women weren't getting roles on TV. Dark-skinned women weren't being chosen to model. So the fact that she was as dark as she was and getting the attention that she got really
Mm-hmm.
captivated me.
Mm-hmm.
So I incorporated that into the character's role. It kind of leveled out and wasn't so much about that anymore, but that element was still there.
Mm-hmm.
With my other books, it always started off with something that I saw that was wrong, that I wanted somebody to know that I knew, and just kind of give them like a countdown that your time is going to be up in a minute and you are going to have to answer to what is happening very, very soon.
I love that you said that because it makes me think of, how sometimes comedians, they can talk about what's going on around us, but because they do it in a form of comedy, they can say certain things.
Yeah,
Unlike if they just came right out and said different topics that are going, whether it be racism or classism or what have you, because it's like in this comedy forum, they can speak on it more and be very honest about how they feel about it without like cancel culture, if you will, kind of coming on them because it's like, wait, I'm doing comedy. And so it makes me think about with your writing that it's like you can bring attention to things that are going on and saying, listen, we need to make changes here. But because it's in the fiction form, I think sometimes you can reach more people and get more people to think. Just like through comedy, a good comedian can talk about, like a Dave Chappelle can talk about certain issues and have you maybe think about things differently than if you had some politician or some like thought leader who's basically saying the same thing, but it's not kind of wrapped in that comedy. Does that make sense?
it makes perfect sense because if it depending on who the messenger is, it
Mm-hmm.
comes off as very preachy. Depending on how it's packaged, it comes off
Mm-hmm.
like I don't want to hear that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
that. But if it has that element of entertainment, then people are going to be more receptive to the message.
Right. And that's why I think the work that you're doing is so important because how with this type of storytelling, which is something that's part of our culture, right? Storytelling has always been a part of the Black community, Black culture, telling our stories and passing it on down. So I think this is a beautiful way of continuing that and something for different reasons it got kind of lost. But I'm so happy that with the work that you're doing, not only writing books, but also helping others on their path to write. I think that that's so important in our community.
I agree. I agree. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, because so many times, how many times we have other people telling our stories,
It's
you
That's
know?
my biggest pet peeve right now
Mm-hmm.
in publishing, especially with the diversity, um, the push for diversity.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want diversity; they just want to shut us up. So, yeah.
Yeah. So again, why your work is so important. So now we're going to go into a few of the topics that you have written about, but also, as you said, that you're passionate about because you are being active in your own community on these different issues. So the first topic we're going to talk about is food scarcity. So for those that are like, what is food scarcity? Those are listening. What is food scarcity? What does that mean? Can you help us understand what food scarcity is and why you have such a passion about explaining it to people, sharing with people, and really bringing awareness to it, to this topic.
Okay. Well, food scarcity is just what it sounds like. Ain't no food there. Food is there.
Ain't
Um,
no food there.
in lower income communities, and I've been a writer for a long time, so I've been very poor for a long time. There are very poor neighborhoods that don't have a grocery store in them, or the grocery store is a lot farther than, say, a Burger King or a McDonald's or the corner store where they make the banging chicken wings. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't deny myself any of the banging chicken wings from the corner store. but there needs to be access to something closer. I got really into food scarcity and food deserts when I was living on the south side of Syracuse, and there were two grocery stores. There was No Jams, and there was, I think it was called PNC at the time. The south side spans 2 zip codes. There were
Oh my goodness.
2 grocery stores in this zip code, but there was a corner store everywhere. And
a corner store and a liquor store.
You know what? The south side was so bad, there wasn't even that many liquor stores. I mean, they used to be there, but they closed down.
Wow.
So that was a problem, because having to walk or catch the bus to the grocery store, or the grocery store was expensive. The variety, there was no variety. Me and my kids would have to take the push carts, the shopping carts, and get on the bus and go to the suburbs to get groceries. I don't know if anybody who's watching has ever caught the bus to go grocery shopping.
Oh my gosh.
It's, yeah. So
with my cart.
Imagine you have to do that with children.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So there was that. Then I moved to Memphis. And Memphis, Tennessee. You want to talk about a food desert? You would look on Google and they would say that this grocery store was there. And at one point in time, that grocery store might have been there, but that grocery store hasn't been there and nobody's updated it on Google. You go there and it's a Checkers, it's a pawn shop, it's a different type of pawn shop. It's not a grocery store. The grocery stores that were in the neighborhood where I lived had molded vegetables on the counters. And there were things that I was trying to do while I was doing my research on these food deserts. There was a program where you could start a business if you wrote to the mayor and asked for a grant. I got denied for the grant. There were like 4 abandoned buildings around the corner from my house. And I said, we need a grocery store in this area. So can I start a fresh produce grocery store? And got denied. This was before we even went into the credit thing, even went into business licenses and all the stuff that you have to. They were just like, no, we don't want to put that there. We want to use those buildings for something else. Those buildings are still abandoned to this day. I had to catch a bus at, I don't even want to say what time I caught it at, but like it was like a 2-hour bus ride there and back, and had to get on 3 separate buses with a baby strapped to me and a stroller because my kids are 19 months apart. And trying to get groceries like that, trying to make sure that I had fresh produce, because I can't just feed my kids chicken nuggets all the time. So that's a big issue to me, near and dear to my heart. And everybody's like, okay, well, you got to eat fresh, you got to eat organic. What if that's not available to you? Right. You have to make that accessible as well as affordable.
No, that's so true. And it's so sad because even when you go to certain grocery stores, I've gone to certain grocery stores, the same grocery chain, in like a Black community. And then I've gone to one in the suburbs where the community is predominantly white. And even that same chain, the items are stocked totally differently. Totally different.
Prices.
And the prices. So this is a big issue. I remember in my previous life working in politics, that there were many times different politicians would come and meet with my boss at the time to talk about the issue of food deserts in their district. And they would talk about, as far as like families who had to use public transportation, and going to the supermarket would be an all day ordeal.
Yeah.
Because many times you had to take one bus to go to the downtown area, then from downtown take the bus to the other side of town. And again, many times you have parents who are with kids, moms with their children, and they're taking 2-3 buses to get to the grocery store just to try to get fresh produce.
Definitely. And people on the bus are not nice to people with strollers.
No.
Starting with the bus drivers. And buses are more accessible to people with bikes than people with strollers. And that never made sense to me.
Mm-hmm. And so it's so important to bring these things to light, such as food deserts, food scarcity, because with everything going on, like we're in the midst of a pandemic right now, this issue right here, food scarcity, this still exists. And now we're even seeing issues in the chain, in the food chain, of us getting items, even toilet paper. We went to Walmart and there was like, everything was pretty scarce as far as, different supplies that you need in your household. And you're also seeing, we went to Publix the other day, it's a grocery store here in Charlotte, and many items, again, there's like not a lot of options. So I'm thinking about in communities that only have like the 2 grocery stores.
Mm-hmm.
How are they surviving in this kind of paradigm that we're in?
It's ridiculous because you're not supposed to be going out. Well, I guess we're somewhat past that now.
Mm-hmm.
But people weren't supposed to be going out. The services that can get people food, like Instacart, they jack their prices up. They've got so many fees attached to it that it's not accessible to people who actually need it. It's more of a luxury than something that's going to help people who could actually use that service.
Mm-hmm. So true. And I know we can go on and on about this issue because it's so important. And I'm so happy that through your work that you're bringing awareness to it, because a lot of us take it for granted to be able to hop in the car or go to a grocery store that's maybe 15 minutes away. That's something that a lot of people they do not have that luxury. So it's important that we bring awareness to it, especially with everything going on right now in our society.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say, if you are watching this video, please share. If you have an aspiring author in your family, or you are an aspiring author, or you just want to know how literary fiction can bring up really important topics such as food scarcity, then definitely stay with us for this entire time. Give this video a thumbs up, but also share as well. Another topic that you talk about is classism, but you frame it more so within the Black community. Ooh, tell us all about this.
So, me and Kai go way back, like a couple of times. So I'm a very different person than who I was when me and Kai first met each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So we started off, well, I can't say we, but I started off, I grew up in Jack and Jill and NAACP meetings and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I got pregnant in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was booted out of all those things. I had scholarships stripped from me. I had college acceptance ripped from me, denied. And even when I was in some of those programs, I wasn't quite picking up what they were putting down, for lack of a better phrase, because they wanted us to be a certain way, looking down on certain people, and I couldn't do that because I'm like, what is this for? I believe in lifting while you climb, and they were like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, but we are going to steal your boots. So this is it really sparked some things in my head, like the whole time that I was going through that. But then afterwards, after me getting pregnant in high school, um, it my world just totally changed. The things that I knew, the people that I had access to, um, showed a whole different side of them. It was like, this is the worst thing in the world that you can ever do.
Wow.
Along with me getting all these scholarships ripped from me, the same people that were telling me that I was so terrible were handing scholarships to the father of my child. So that just gave it a whole different layer.
Mm-hmm.
The third layer is the same people who cursed me and put a scarlet A on me and banished me from their world.
Mm-hmm.
When my child became older and they saw that he was talented and could do things,
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden they want him
Wow.
to sit at their table.
Yeah. Wow.
Which I hate the phrase "seat at the table." It's, oh, but that's a different topic for a different day.
Mm-hmm.
So the classism thing is like, okay, this class system is not rooted in reality. So we've got these people who are basically mirroring white supremacy, the white supremacy that they claim that they're trying to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
They are basically, they just want to replace themselves with the white people in power, and some of them go as far to lynch their own.
Mm.
I don't know how deep I'm allowed to get.
Go ahead. This is straight facts over here. So no, go right ahead.
But there's always there they it's like we can't operate without having somebody under our foot. And I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
our in a general sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but we it's come to a point where liberation for Black people is simply us having what white people have rather than being a community. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
strong believer in collective work,
Mm-hmm.
but there is a lot of, we don't want collective work if the people that we're working with don't look like us. There's
Mm-hmm.
a push for a Black women in luxury movement,
Mm-hmm.
but and there's nothing wrong with luxury. I like a good bag, a pair of shoes, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to look down on people who don't have that. We don't want people to have access to things that we have. They'll say things like, "Oh, too many people are too many Black people are going to Santorini, so it's ghetto. Um, these people don't have a passport, so they're not worth my time." Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's also, on an even deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
there are people who are going to look down on people who are in public housing, but not looking at what's keeping them there in public housing. Or going to assume, I don't, if you ever hear people talking about Black people, period, it's, you're either in dating, you're either a good guy or you're hood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's offensive to me because my first apartment was in the Pioneer Homes.
Mm-hmm.
I was getting up and going to work at an insurance company. We were working together as
We're
a matter
working
of fact.
together. Mm-hmm.
I was working at this Fortune 5. I don't know if it was Fortune 500. I'm pretty sure that it was at one point in time. But I
Mm-hmm.
was working in corporate America, still going home to the projects because that was all that I could afford
Mm-hmm.
to live in because I wasn't being paid.
Yeah.
But I was still being labeled like I was not like I wasn't worth anything because of where I lived. I had
Mm-hmm.
no access to food unless I had a car. I couldn't afford a car, but I was getting up every day and paying my bills. Um, I daycare was eating most of my paycheck, so it was just like you're being looked down on by your own people, but you're doing everything that you can, trying to climb up, trying to make life better. And they're like, no, you don't deserve a better life because of your zip code. You're making us look bad. And that always sat deep in me. So in my writing, I made sure to call that out, to call out how I felt getting up, going to work every day and still being told that I'm not worth anything because of where I lay my head at night. I'm not deserving of this. Well, when I started bringing awareness of food deserts, the response was, well, why do you live there? Somebody lives there. And everybody should have equal access to things.
Yeah, I mean, that's a human rights.
Right.
Rights. You should have access to food.
Right.
Like as a human, you should be able to have food so that you can eat and take care of your family.
Exactly.
You know, and we have Baseman Awakened says materialism doesn't even equal wealth. The collective wealth of Black people hasn't changed in 100 years. Yeah, and I just like to say, add on to Baseman and what you said, Kimani. I think even with now that we have social media, I think it's even more so that whole thing of showing Black folks in this luxury in whether it's luxury car, home, clothing. But when you look at our community, it's in shambles.
Right.
You know, when we're looking at as far as where we are economically, the ability to compete in society, we don't have that. So how is that really serving us that I can drive around in a BMW? I can drive around in a Land Rover. Like, how is that overall? How is that serving your community? And I'm not saying, you know, you work hard for what you get. So I'm not saying that you need to sacrifice everything. But if I guess what I want to say, and I want to get your opinion on this, if we don't look at how collectively we're stronger than just a few millionaires and billionaires here and there, then we are all going to sink. So it may be fun times now, but a community can't survive with a couple people at the head being able to live the lap of luxury, and mostly everybody else is toward the bottom of the economic ladder. What are your thoughts on that?
Totally agree. You said it all. We have the people that we worship. We have our Oprahs and Bill Cosby. Oprah got on TV and said herself, Sean Robinson was interviewing her and asked her what was her duty to make, how much did she feel was her duty to create the next Black billionaire. She said it's not her business. So why are we glorifying these people who wouldn't spit on us if we were on fire? We go through these things where we celebrate, oh, this one became the first Black billionaire. This one is on their way to becoming the first Black woman millionaire or what have you. But we don't look at the backs that they had to step on in order to get there. Okay, true enough. This person has $1 billion. Wonderful. Their employees still qualify for food stamps. Their employees have to catch 2 buses and a train to get to work. So what good is this doing? Who is this helping? Okay, we've got somebody to look up to. What are we looking up to? Somebody else who's gonna get to a certain point and then forget about everybody else? And I don't say that in a way to count anybody's pockets, because your money is your money, and I'm real stingy with mine as well when it's coming from somebody just asking for the sake of asking. However, if you truly worked hard for your money, you would be redistributing that to the people who contributed to you having that in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
There would be no rumors of sweatshops in certain places. There would be no um nothing against somebody at McDonald's making $15.
Mm-hmm.
Um and everybody's job would be seen as a job that they have to get up and go to.
Right.
I have a belief that everybody who works a job, especially at a company that makes billions and trillions of dollars a year, should be able to afford, at the very least, at minimum, on their paycheck, working however many hours they work a week, 20 to 40
Mm-hmm.
hours, whatever, they
Mm-hmm.
should be able to afford a way to get to work and back, a place to lay their heads,
Mm-hmm.
food when they go, food while they're there,
Mm-hmm.
and clothing clothing to wear to and from work, outside of work, and a way to wash those clothes.
Mm-hmm.
At the very minimum, you should hear the reactions. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
You should hear the reactions that I get when people say that. Well, if they can't afford that at one job, why don't they get a different job? No matter where you work,
Mm-hmm.
especially after everything that we went through in 2020, no matter
Yeah.
where you work, you should have minimum be able to afford the things that I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, they're like, well, no, you need to work. What's your plan to get out of that to work somewhere else? Well, maybe they don't have a plan, but they should still be able to afford to live
Mm-hmm.
and be this expensive.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And you're touching upon something. I was having a conversation earlier with the hubby, and this really gets me. I'm very passionate about this, so I'm gonna try to reel it in just so I can articulate it. So I
Okay.
don't go from 0 to 10. So I'm gonna try to reel it in so I can kind of speak to it to get your insight on it, because it talks to classism, but also it kind of intertwines the next topic that you speak on in your book, which is racism. So we have these Black celebrities. I feel like you already know where I'm going. You already know these Black celebrities that are continuously placed in front of us. And the angle I'm gonna take from this is the political angle, just because that's my background, and that's where kind of my knowledge resides. And I think I will touch a little bit on wellness, but more so the political part. And so I'm seeing these celebrities, which I understand that they're getting used on purpose, but I'm also looking at the state of the Black community, how we don't have time for these celebrities to basically get on TV and kind of read some talking points that whatever party that has pushed them in front of us has told them to read. We need a Black person. Go get that singer, rapper, dancer, actress, actor, and put them everywhere and get them on every podcast. So we have, and they're just spreading that same message, whatever party wants them to kind of to speak to us, that's what they're saying. Right. And so we look at them as though they look like us, or we grew up listening to their music. And my concern is that we're not separating the entertainment from this person that's delivering a message with you that maybe it may not be in your best interest. You can like their music, you can go to their concert, but it doesn't mean politically that they're providing you information that is in your best interest. The other part to that is, I'm just going to say this. I'm pretty sure that a lot of these celebrities that have made it to a certain economic level are voting and supporting policies that help keep them in that economic level. I doubt that they're like, you know what? We got so and so over there making $20,000 a year, you know, barely making it. Some like I need to support policies to help that person out. They're not thinking about your everyday, especially Black person, the one that they're coming to garner your support for whatever policy, whatever they're pushing. They're not doing that. And one celebrity in particular that continues to show his face and do things that negatively impact our community is Jay-Z.
Girl.
Continuously. And so, I mean, at this point, it's like I look at our community. I'm sorry, I'm gonna let you talk because, like I told you, I feel the heat rising, and I feel I'm going to 10, so I gotta wheel it back in.
No,
but I see our community falling off a cliff, and then I see politicians continuing to push Jay-Z. Right, I've seen him mostly in the front, and now I think Will Smith is kind of getting looped in as well to push certain policies on us. And it's like these celebrities, though you may like their music, though you may like their movies, though you may like whatever other ventures they have, Jay-Z, it has a billionaire mindset. So he's going to act, vote, whatever accordingly so he can stay at that status. And I think the thing is that, which I love what you're doing through your writing, is hopefully waking our community up to say, listen, you have to begin to think logically about who's in front of you, why they're in front of you, and what's the message that they're telling you. And I'll end it at that. I'm sorry.
Keep going.
You know, it's just like, you know, we saw what he did with, and I'm not trying to rat on Jay-Z, but I just recently saw a picture of him, so that's why I'm using him as an example. Like we saw what he did with, what was it, in Brooklyn, with the stadium,
the Barclays
Center, how that displaced folks. Like we've continuously, and you know, as I've said in other videos I've done, you always look at patterns of behavior, and through those patterns, you can tell what type of person you're dealing with. And you know, for some reason, we just can't. We're not, as a community, generally speaking, separating the entertainer from the person that is coming to us delivering whatever message, and not really thinking, is this person really thinking of my best interest, or are they around billionaires and so far removed from everyday life that we experience that they can't even relate? Like Jay-Z may pretend that he can relate he can't relate. How long has he been away from the hood?
Long enough to displace the people in the hood.
But yet, we're excited that he's a billionaire or Rihanna's a billionaire. I just like, but that doesn't impact us. I'm sorry, I'm going off. I'm running out of time. But again, if you want, you can speak to classism, and then also racism as well. That's one that we did not get to, that you also cover in your writing.
Okay, well, I didn't know that we were allowed to name names here on the podcast. Hold on. I should have poured a glass of wine. I didn't know that we were naming names.
We name dropping.
There is and I'm not gonna get too deep, but since we're naming names, there is a quote or a clip of an interview or something that Kanye West did, talking about us worshiping designers right before he drops his $400 or $500 shoes. And we were like, yeah, he's right. He's absolutely right about that. We need to stop worshiping designers. And then they're like, oh no. That's different because he's Black. Who are those $400 or $500 shoes, which are very ugly? by the way.
Who is like, I don't know.
They're very ugly
Yeah,
sneakers.
ugly.
Um, who's benefiting from that but him and his family? Not mine. I still got to fill out a heat application tomorrow so that I can make sure that I got heat in my house this winter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not his fault. That's
Mm-hmm.
I don't have as much money as him. So why am I going to celebrate him?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to celebrate what he's doing when number one, slavery was a choice.
Right.
And whoever wants to, you can put my social media up so whoever wants to come at me can come at me a different time. But it's like why do we continue to worship these people who continue to, we're sacrificial lambs to these people?
Mm-hmm.
You talked about Jay-Z and what he did. Let's talk about Colin Kaepernick, somebody who actually used his celebrity to help us. Jay-Z turned around and made a sacrificial lamb out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Now I didn't even read the last thing that he did with the NFL, but he got money out of it.
Yep.
And this is what I'm talking about. So you wanted to talk about racism, and I guess Colin Kaepernick is my segue into this.
Mm-hmm.
All this, like I said earlier, is to mimic white supremacy. So we're going to feed into something that has been holding us down, keeping us under its foot for so long, and we are going to, instead of getting rid of it, we just want to replace it with people who look like us, and that makes it okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That never sets right with me.
Mm-hmm.
That never sets right with me. Or will, even in groups that my children are in. Now, I have my children in various groups so that they can get into college and get as much paid for it as possible, because I got a lot of kids in college.
College is expensive. That tuition keeps going up.
Yeah, me and they daddy don't make a whole lot of money, so we trying to do what we got to do to get them through. But we go to these programs, we put them in these programs, and they want them to be like Elon. They want them to be the next Elon Musk. And they want to prepare them because these places are going, these jobs that you go to, that you apply to, are going to look at you a certain way. You can't name your kids what you want to name them because they're not going to get a job, or their applications are going to be thrown away. And it's like, why are we constantly setting these kids up for failure in this society instead of making it easier for them by dismantling it? We're just replacing it with something else. Because we'll have somebody come in to talk to these kids about the world and what it's like. And as parents, we definitely prepare them because that's the reality. But then we got these people coming in and saying, well, you have to do this, this, and this, and this, instead of fighting so that they don't have to do this.
Right.
You give them the work twice as hard to be half as good speech and try to prepare them for that, instead of fighting a little bit harder for them to not have to do that. Because we'll see things like Simone Biles, who exceeded the twice as good and got penalized for being twice as good.
Yeah.
So how do we tell our children that you're going to be so good that they're not even going to count the twice as good that you do, but you still have to do that, or else they won't let you in. They won't let you have a seat at their table. I can't really wrap my mind around that, so I have to do things that I have to do things that change. I don't want any part of that system that they've created, because the system has been designed to fail. designed for us to fail.
Right.
Some has always kept us out. I don't want my children fighting to be a part of a system that is only going to swallow them whole and destroy them.
Powerful. Powerful. And through your writing, that's what you work to address those type of structural issues.
That's definitely what I try to. I hope that it reaches people so that we can start making these changes, because I write about the changes that I want to see all the time. But sometimes it feels like I'm just yelling into the void because it's heavy. And we're going through this area. We're going through this period of time where people are like, "Well, I don't want to read any of our trauma." And I understand that, but there's some things that we got to address.
It's so true. You know, and you're right. These are heavy topics, and they don't feel good about talking about them, but we can't continue to ignore them because it just exacerbates the situation.
Right.
And I think what happens is, because we are, I think, just mentally and emotionally fatigued, because we're in this constant state of being traumatized just over and over and over again. So because of that, I think we do look for an escape. And so we find our escape through these celebrities, right? Through kind of looking at these celebrities, looking at their Instagram, thinking that we get a little glimpse of their life, and we kind of live vicariously through them, which escapes us from us dealing with the real issues. So then when folks are pushing them in front of us, it's just like, it's more digestible and we accept it more because we've already been kind of using their lifestyle to escape. But you're exactly right. These issues are the same issues we've been dealing with for years. And so not addressing them or pretending they're not there is not going to solve the problem. And it's just going to make it harder for the next generation. Because, you know, there's been, you know, this goes along with what you write about with classism. We've seen how in the Black community, when we're looking at the Black community, white community, we're seeing that racial wealth gap is increasing. You know, so we can't, you know, Jay-Z, Beyonce, I know I'm probably going to get in trouble with the Beehive, but none of them are going to help to close that gap because they're billionaires.
They don't benefit from closing.
They benefit from being used by the powers that be to put them in front of us. Because let's be honest, the money is in the attention. So if you can garner folks' attention, then you can get paid.
Exactly.
You know, that's kind of where we are right now. And so I'm so glad that through your work, through your writing, and also working with other authors, that you're having this serious conversations. And maybe it is more digestible to read about it in the books that you provide, because it also provides like, this could be an outcome, or this is how we can look and address it. Because sometimes looking at all these different issues our community faces, it can feel overwhelming. You know, so wow, we went deep, and let me see, we're going over a little bit of time. We have a little bit more time. Kimani, are you okay with time?
Oh yeah, I'm good.
You're
I'm
good.
good.
Okay.
I told you one of these topics was gonna keep us here.
I know. So we talked a little bit about racism and addressing that. Is there anything else that you wanted to go in about racism and how you address that in your book?
Racism, I felt like that was like everybody Black can relate to that. So I really wanted to focus more on the classism element, because I just wanted to hold a mirror up to us and let us see how we are mimicking racism with the things that we do. And so in my books, it's about a fictional town so that everybody could just look at it and be very judgy toward this fictional town.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bridge, and your quality of life is determined by what side of this bridge that you live on. Because on the one side of the bridge, the farther you live away from it, the closer you are to whiteness. These
Okay.
white people there's very few white people. They are
Mm-hmm.
very far out, and it's very segregated. So the closer you get to these white people,
Mm-hmm.
the better off your quality of life is. But you have to do some very dirty things to live out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted everybody to see that through my writing. And I'm hoping that when people read the book, they will recognize, because when I say there are some dirty things that you have to do and some dirty things that you have to um, turn a blind eye to and deny
Mm-hmm.
and blame it on the people who live on the other side of the bridge. So the bridge is classism is the bridge, and you have to turn your eyes to everything that classism does to destroy your community in order to get to the whiteness, where you still have to deal with racism, but
Mm-hmm.
you get to deal with it closer.
Right. And
So
so what is this? What's the book? I'm gonna see if I can pull the book up, but what is the book that you're talking about that
it's Consider Your Ways.
let's see if I can pull it up and everything doesn't shut down on me.
Please don't shut down on
Please
her.
don't shut down. All right, let's see. I think I can get it up here.
Look at you, all tech savvy.
There we go. All right, so this is your book that you were talking about.
Yes, that is my book, baby. That is the anchor book in the series, Consider Your Ways. And that one is going to everything that we talked about here tonight is represented in that book.
Wow. So everyone has to get their copy, and how you can do that, if you go to the description section in this video, whether you're watching on YouTube or in Facebook, you will find the link so that you can not only purchase this book, but also look at the other books that Kimani has written that you can have access to buy and support an independent author's work who's talking about real issues that are impacting our community and society in general. So leave that up there for folks to see.
Oh, that looks so nice.
That's all you, boo. And so there's a couple other things. You were right. You're like, hi, we're going to go over. We sure did. So I'm going to try to wrap it up, but I could just go on and on because I just feel that all these topics you and I can go even deeper into, but we're going to be here all until midnight. So and we probably end up getting ourselves in trouble.
I told you.
You
opened
did.
up the floodgates.
It's true. You called it. So in preparation of asking you to come on the podcast, I just started looking up some other books that are kind of circulating regarding social justice. And so, as you said, that is a topic that is getting a lot of attention right now. A lot of books are out about it. And so one interesting thing I did share with you. Now, of course, this is a conservative site, article, organization. So take with it what you will. But they were talking about, they were upset because there have been such an increase of social justice writing in stories that are being told. And so this conservative article was saying that that this was a negative thing because kind of like the literature was kind of getting inundated with all this talk about diversity, whether it be race, ethnicity, or gender. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that. So again, like I said, it is a conservative paper, but there may be other folks that may feel the same way. I mean, even when you see certain stories, certain things on television where they're dealing with these type of issues, you mentioned Colin Kaepernick when he was doing his protest. People were like, "Oh, why are you talking about race? I'm here to watch a football game." And people could think, I enjoy reading. I'm not here to read about race and all this other stuff. So, what are your thoughts for people that kind of had that type of thinking? That's how they think when it comes to literary fiction.
We got another hour for this
Uh
podcast.
oh.
I will try to be brief.
Okay.
But being in the author realm at this time is so interesting because, okay, I'm going to say something controversial. I kind of agree with the quote that you sent me about the diversity push destroying publishing right now, but not for the same reason that they were saying it.
Okay.
Because it needs to be talked about. They don't want it to be talked about at all. However, it brings out very disingenuous people. It brings out people writing under Black pen names, but they're not Black.
Okay.
So you'll be thinking that this New York Times bestseller is about Black people, and it is not.
Wow.
Not about Black people. It's about Black people, but not written by somebody Black. It's written by somebody white with a pen name. There are, as an author, I find myself talking to a lot of other authors about the diversity. They have these diversity sensitivity classes. They'll have classes called Writing the Other. And they'll ask how white people can write about characters of color.
Wow.
And it's just like, okay, if I did write about white people, it wouldn't be something that I had to stay up at night stressing about because they're people. They have there's so many layers to it. It's like sickening because, okay, there was social media airs out everything. So there was a trending topic called "Publishing Paid Me," about how much less Black authors got paid than white authors by their publishing companies. Then they had to backtrack to find out how many Black authors actually got signed by traditional publishing companies. So now this year, there's been a flooding of emails from different book promotion sites that are telling us, oh, we are trying to do our best to promote more Black authors, but we don't know where to start. We need you to tell us. Promote more Black authors. What are you saying? Let Black readers know that your sites exist. Because I only find out about these sites because of because I am an author. And then we have to go to marketability. There are authors who have had to, especially Black women, who have had to remove Black women from their book covers to get a sale.
Wow.
And they'll come to me bragging about how much their sales increased after they removed the Black woman from it. And it's like, well, at what point do we stop feeding this diversity? To me, right now, the way that it's presented is, let's see how acceptable this is to white people. We're going to be people of color, but we want to be white approved. And it just goes against everything that I stand for. So I know that I'm all over the place with my answer, but
No, not at all.
I just wanted to make sure that I covered all of my thoughts about this, because yes, we do need more stories told. We do need more of our stories told, but we need to be able to tell them. We need to be able to tell them without having to hold them up to a scope of white supremacy or white.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, with that being said, Kimani, what would you say for those maybe aspiring authors or writers who want to talk about what they're seeing going on in their community? Talk about racism, sexism, classism. What would you say to them that want to talk about those issues but actually make change? They're not there to ride the wave. They're there because they actually want to see, how can my writing bring about change?
We need it. I tell them, write the story, but be prepared to have the door shut in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Make sure that you are willing to be the only one speaking about it, or speaking about it in the way that you want to. There might not be a check tied into it, because you might not um, be writing what's trendy. You might not be writing what's sexy. They want to see a white savior in all this,
Mm-hmm.
or they want to see a, I guess I could say they want to see a mainstream savior. So if it's sexism, they want to see a straight man saved somebody.
Mm-hmm.
If it's racism, they want to see a white man or a white woman save somebody. If it's poverty, they want to see somebody rich save these people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the victim also being the hero.
Mm.
And you've got to be prepared to fight against that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to tell your story about how you overcame,
Mm-hmm.
or if your story doesn't have a lot of trauma in it. Well, if your story does have trauma, then be prepared to get it rejected, because we don't want to read that. We just want to read light and fluffy things. We don't want to read about struggle. And that's fine for people who use books as a form of escapism,
Mm-hmm.
and don't want to look at the book, don't want to look at, the issues that are going on every day.
Mm-hmm.
But just be prepared to be put out, set yourself up for a lot of rejection. You got to find your pocket, and you got to be comfortable. You have to have a thick skin, because you're going to hear the word no a lot. You're going to fall on a lot of deaf ears, but you have to, the story was put into you because somebody needs to hear it.
Mm.
Keep telling it until it falls on to those right ears.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said. And so for your role, Kimani, where do you find it as storytelling, working with other authors? How have you kind of found your space so that your voice is heard, your stories are being told? How have you created space for yourself to make sure that happens?
Girl, I'm still looking for my space.
Mm.
I tried to repackage myself, but there are certain expectations. So I started off in one genre, and it wasn't being well received because they were expecting something else. So I tried to move over to another genre, and it's not being well received because it doesn't it doesn't fit there either.
Mm.
So I made my own genre.
Mm.
So I'm still trying to find my place. I'm still trying to get heard,
Mm-hmm.
but it's coming along more and more. Um, just the more that I talk about it, the more that I am blessed with opportunities by people like yourself to give me a platform to talk about it. It gets out there, and I just don't shut up about it. I get excited about myself. I tell everybody all the time, nobody is going to give you a standing ovation until you start clapping for yourself.
Yeah,
And
I saw you made that post. I think I saw it on Instagram. I was like, yes, speak to my spirit, girl.
so I had to start clapping for myself a whole lot more. I do my read alouds every Thursday on my Instagram page, and
Mhm.
sometimes I'll only have one person. Sometimes there'll be nobody there, but I kind of treat it like it's Video Soul or 106 in Park, like I have the audience,
Mhm.
and the audience is gonna come. um I just have to keep celebrating myself and keep sharing it, keep talking, don't shut up about it.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
ship is coming in soon, and I know that it is because um this week and last week I was number one and number two on the urban sociology category on Amazon, so something is working. And
Right.
it's just a matter of just keep talking about yourself, keep tooting your own horn. Don't wait for anybody else to do it. You got to do it yourself, because if you
Mhm.
don't, you're going to get lost in a sea of everybody else who is either has found their way
Mhm.
or has conformed to a different way.
Powerful and so true. And so, with that being said, before we go into a whole nother hour, what would you like to leave with our listeners with today, Kimani? And also, how can they purchase your book?
Well, my books are free on all ebook platforms, either on all ebook platforms or Kindle Unlimited. If you want a signed paperback copy, then you can log on to KimaniLaurenBooks.com, and they are all up for purchase on there. They are also available in all of the major retailers online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I can't think of anybody else who sells books right now. Request them at your library.
Uh-huh.
And then I want to leave you with just what I said. Clap for yourself while you're waiting for your standing ovation, because you have to be your biggest cheerleader. I don't mean to
Mhm.
be cliche, but it's just the truth. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You have to
Look
support
what
your.
we have here.
You have to support yourself, because nobody else is going to show up for you like you show up for you. So make sure that you do show up for yourself
Mhm.
the way that you want everybody else to do, because that's a manifestation or an affirmation of what you want to see. Be the
So
support
true.
system that you want to see or that you want to have for yourself. Put
Yes.
yourself first.
Mhm. That's so true. That's so true. This was such a pleasure, Kimani, to have you on.
I thank you.
And I'm so happy we've been able to reconnect. And I look forward to, of course, supporting your work any way that I can. And I think that you are doing God's work. So thank you so much for pouring in our community, telling your story, speaking your truth. That is what is needed, especially during this time. So thank you so much for what you're doing. We appreciate that.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to see everything that you're doing.
Yeah, and so you are welcome back anytime. Thank you so much. We're gonna now I know for sure we're gonna have to allot more time and bring some wine for the next
Every
conversation. So thank you so much. I also want to thank everyone who joined us live. Please give this video a thumbs up. Please share. You want to make sure that we are supporting our independent authors, because there are those big publishing companies out there, but if you really want to support local and support those people that are kind of like at the grassroots level, then this is what you want to do, and this is how you can do it. So if you want to purchase Kimani's books, what I know you do, just go to the description box and you can find all the links to her social media and also her website. So please make sure you check all of those things out. So with that being said, I hope that everyone has a fabulous, fabulous night. And I will see you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here on the Healing Element Podcast. Thanks again, Kimani. And we are out.
Come to this.